Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. It is bright and early right now. It's 6:30 in the morning. We're about to head down to the garden and do our very first kind of bulk harvest of the garden for 2025, and I'm really excited about it. And once we're done there, we're going to bring everything that we harvested up to the house and we are going to get it all preserved. Behind me here, you can see my Romney sheep. For those of you that are new here, these guys behind me here are basically my pet sheep at this point. I originally purchased them a few years ago. They're Romney sheep to start learning about spinning and the fiber arts and all that kind of stuff. But I found over the last couple of years that I really don't have the time to learn a new art like that at this stage of my life. Potentially I will when I am at a different stage, but they are very sweet and lovely and we enjoy having them. And the nice thing about these particular sheep, I don't know if this applies to all sheep or not, but to this particular little flock of sheep, they're able to free range around our farm. They don't cause any issues at all. They actually stay for the most part out of the yard around our house. We do have it fenced around our house to keep the livestock out, but even with the gates open, they don't come in there. They have been trained not to, and they listen, which is very surprising when it comes to livestock. Generally, that is not the case. And also, we have good fencing around all of our gardens. So this fence here, this is my crop garden. I have potatoes and onions and sunflowers and corn in that garden, and we have that fenced with hot wire, so that keeps them out of there. This way, down over there, we have my main garden, and that is fenced with page wire, so it keeps them out of there. Other than that, they have the run of the farm, and they're quite happy with that, and so am I, because there's just nothing more sweet than coming out in the morning to wander down to the garden and have my sheep laying here on the lawn or munching away. Brings me a lot of joy. Kind of like my ducks. I've shared this before. I have two ducks that are, I think they're nearing 8 years old now, and their purpose is to bring us joy. That's about it. We do eat the eggs, but other than that, they just waddle around and look cute and make us smile. So on that note, let's head down to the garden and start our harvest. The first place that we need to stop this morning is right here where we have our chive flowers. We're going to harvest all those chive flowers, or a lot of them. Actually, no, we'll probably harvest all of them, even though they look so beautiful there. It kind of makes me sad to remove flowers from the garden. And then behind that, you can see my spinach, and we actually have a mix of spinaches in there, along with some lamb's quarters here, which is basically like a wild spinach. It tastes very similar. So I'm actually, when we're going to cut this out, we're going to bring this with us up to the kitchen, and we're going to make a couple of different things for the pantry shelves out of all of these gorgeous greens. So let's get to that. Actually, let's start with the flowers here first. I'm going to go grab a harvesting basket. 1 second. So for these guys, we're actually just going to pop them off the top. One of the other things about early harvesting like this is the bees aren't out yet. So it makes it a lot easier to harvest flowers like this. Okay, so we're going to pop all of these off, smacking mosquitoes as we go. We'll leave just a few for a little bit of color right here. So really early in the spring, this little squash plant here came up, and I didn't think there was any way it was going to survive, because normally we get lots of hard frosts throughout April and into May, and often into June as well. And we have not had any frost here for, gosh, at least 6 weeks now, maybe even 8 weeks, the longest period I've ever seen of not having frost in the spring. So anyway, we did have a light frost beginning of April, something like that. I don't remember exactly when. And this little squash plant, I thought for sure it was going to die. Even though I covered it, it kind of drooped out and I thought it was gone for. But it came back, and now it is growing here. So my plan is, I like to let wherever my volunteer plants come up grow wherever they come, because I just think it adds just a wild whimsy to the garden that I love. So because we're going to be pulling out the majority of this spinach right now, I'm going to let this squash plant grow. I have no idea what kind of squash it is. It'll definitely be a hybrid, because my squash cross-pollinate all over my garden, and I have at least 15 for different varieties of squash, usually every year. So it's going to be a mystery squash, but I love that. So behind us here, this is where you can see where we have spinach. We have 2 different varieties of spinach here. I will look back because I think we planted this together, and I did have markers in here, but they have somehow disappeared. So I have no idea which varieties of spinach these are. But this one that's on this side, these little dark green ones, they're not anywhere near bolting yet. So I'm actually going to leave this row here, but we're going to harvest all of the spinach right down to the ground that is along this side. And then we'll bring it up to the kitchen and I'll show you what we're going to make with it. And drop it in our bucket. We do have a few weeds that we don't want. This one's a wild mustard. It is the bane of our existence. We are constantly picking it out of our hay fields. It's horrible stuff, and the animals don't like it either. We also have some chickweed that's growing up underneath here, and chickweed is also edible. So we're going to add that to what we're going to make when we get up to the house. When it comes to harvesting spinach, spinach is best harvested when it's early in the morning before the sun comes out, and either, especially if you're going to have a hot day, it can bolt really quickly, but it also helps the leaves be nice and crisp and full of good moisture. Spinach also does best when it's cool, so early in the spring and in the fall. It's one of the crops that we can plant here for a fall garden because it is also quite hardy to cold. In fact, I just remembered I had some spinach that came back from last year. We'll head down there and harvest that as well. So it's fairly cold hardy, which is awesome for a northern climate. And also, as long as it is cool and it's not going to bolt and you're not going to have any heat waves coming up, you can actually harvest it by pulling off the leaves around the outside of the plant, and then it will keep producing for you. Because we're heading into a heat wave, that is not going to happen. This would all just, within 2 days, this whole entire patch would be bolting. I'm considering my own advice right now because we have this spinach that's growing along the side here, along with the lamb's quarters in there. And it's looking fantastic, and it doesn't look anywhere near to bolting, but we are going to have that heat. So I think what I'll do is keep a really close eye on this patch because I would like to see how it holds up. This one is supposed to be one that holds up to heat quite well. So I'm just going to leave this one. If it looks like it's going to start bolting, then I'll come out and mow this one down as well. Then I'm actually going to be picking everything right out. I do have some buckwheat to use as a cover crop, so I think I might grow that right here because we have this little squash that I can let kind of grow over and cover this bed right here. So I'll just put the buckwheat in to help keep the rest of the weeds down, but I think that's what we'll end up doing. But for now, we'll leave this one and we'll hopefully not have it all bolt. We are going to have dahlias blooming here. I am so excited. So this bed here, I have dahlias planted, and I just cannot wait to see them all blooming. This was actually my first year growing dahlias and actually starting them from the tubers in the early spring. And I'm really happy with the way they grew. The real test will be in the fall when I pull them out and I put them into my root cellar to see, well, I guess the real test will be in the spring to see if I can hold these over the winter. My root cellar is pretty good though, so I think it'll work. This is that patch of spinach that I was telling you about that came up from last year. Look at how gorgeous and huge that is. Fantastic. Look at the size of that leaf. I think this one was Bloomsdale that I planted down here, but that's impressive. These are volunteer sunflowers here. Can't wait to see what they look like. Before we went up to the house, I was so excited to come down and show you my high tunnel because it's all weeded and everything's pruned and it's looking beautiful. And as I was coming down here, I heard this tinkling sound, like running water sound. And I was confused until I came into the high tunnel. Oh my gosh. I have this tank right there and I keep it filled with water for two reasons. One, because I have to go and turn the hydrant on in order to have water down here. So when I need to water the green stalk and the two potted plants up there, I don't have to run over and turn that on because I can use some of the water here in a watering can and have water down here. The second reason is because keeping a tank like this filled with water that can absorb heat during the day, it radiates it out at night, and this is the north end of the high tunnel, so it helps to keep this end a little bit warmer at night. At least that's the theory. So I was filling it yesterday. I was down here and then I remember somebody called me. So I went up to the shop and left that water running. So now, oh my goodness, the whole entire aisle on this side is flooded with 6 inches of water on that end. I'll show you in a second. Oh my word. This could have been a massive problem if I didn't have raised beds in my high tunnel, because it could have completely flooded all my plants. But because I do, you can see the water is in, Simon's there taking a drink, but the water is in the pathways. So what's going to happen is it's just going to absorb into the ground. I'm certainly not going to need to water this side of the high tunnel probably for a while, because the beds have kind of soaked up the water from the bottom, which actually is not a problem because it's going to encourage these roots to go down deep to meet that water. So I'm just going to leave these beds for the next few days. Okay, let me just show you the amount of water we're dealing with. Like, I'm not kidding when I say I flooded my high tunnel. So it's on a little bit of a slope, so most of the water ran down to right here. And as you can see, these beds are raised quite a ways above the water. So it's probably going to take a day or two for this water to go into the ground and also to evaporate, because it's going to get pretty hot in here in the next couple days. Oh, my feet are cold. We'll just call it a water feature for now. It looks like I have a little pond in my high tunnel. Good grief. But then there's this. So great, because we've had quite a bit of rain. We've had lots of heat, but rain, which is perfect for growing hay. So our hay is starting to grow nicely, which is awesome. So this beautiful flower that you can see here, this is called fireweed, and I just love it. And it makes the most amazing tea, the leaves. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to ferment them and then dehydrate them and make them into a delicious tea for winter. But the entire plant is actually edible, so you can harvest the flowers as well and make tea with that. So we're going to do that today as well. So this building that you can see here, this is the building that you can see from our house up there. It's an old log building that we were told when we bought the ranch was used as an ice house back in the 1930s. So it doesn't have any windows or anything. It's solid log, and there's some hooks on the ceilings for hanging meat. I always get asked where I put all my canning jars, because I can over 1,000 jars every year. That's a lot of empty jars by the end of the season. This is where we actually store all of our canning jars and other kinds of things as well. This is the absolute perfect time to harvest fireweed when it looks like that. Isn't that just beautiful? So the reason that it's called fireweed is that it often will grow after a fire has swept through the forest. This is what usually pops up first. Originally, the roof before they put this shake roof on this building was sod. So there is dirt on the roof that's underneath this one. So that's where this is growing out of, but I have no idea how it got seeded here, but I think it looks pretty and I like to harvest it. So I let it grow here. I am actually going to pull off the entire plant because I'm going to be using the flowers and the leaves for it, but I'm going to leave a few of them just because they're beautiful and I don't need that many. I make all different kinds of teas, so this will just be one of many. So I think that should do us. And as I was just walking past to go into the house and looking at my green stalk, I noticed that we have some mint that we're able to harvest here on the bottom. Mint is definitely a cut and come back herb. Oh my gosh. We do have some verbena here that we can harvest as well. Oh my goodness. That smells absolutely amazing. On that note though, let's head inside and turn all of this beautiful food that we just pulled out of the garden into some really great stuff for the winter. Okay, beautiful herbs, beautiful flowers. So the first thing that we have to do, of course, is get all of this stuff washed. So we're going to wash all of those. I want to keep everything separate because I want to do different things with each of these items. Oh, that mint. The mint and the lemon verbena together. Oh my goodness. So we're going to go put all this in the sink and give it a good wash. I'm not going to worry about spinning it, and I'll explain why in a second, but we're also going to soak all of the chive flowers because they can have little bugs in them. So I'm going to immerse them in water and leave them there while we're preparing the rest of this stuff. And then we'll give them a rinse. With the chive flowers, I'm actually going to submerge them and soak them for at least 20 minutes or so that if there's any little bugs in those flowers, those can come out. It's one of the things about having a garden and harvesting plants out of your own garden is bugs are kind of part of it. So you just do your best to mitigate that through soaking and washing and all that stuff. I made the mistake last night of weed whacking in my garden. So I have grass sprayed all over these, so I really do have to wash them one at a time. We're going to be fermenting our fireweed leaves for tea, but for our fireweed flowers, our mint, and our lemon verbena, we are going to just freeze dry them as they are. I do have the chive flowers sitting in water over here, so they are just about ready to be strained out and patted dry. And we're going to be putting our chive flowers into a quart jar and then covering them with some vinegar, some white vinegar in this case. You can use other kinds of vinegar too, but white vinegar is what I'm going to use. So I have a medium harvest rate freeze dryer, and I do have a discount code for that, which I'll link for you down in the show notes below. But my freeze dryer, I don't use it much in the winter time, but it definitely runs full out throughout the summer as I freeze dry products for things like teas, herbs, things like that. The freeze dryer is just absolutely amazing. So I'm just gonna spread out our flowers here and pull off our mint leaves. This is so fun doing this first harvest of the season and smelling all this freshness from the garden. Look at how beautiful that looks. Just gorgeous. So I think what we're going to do next is actually making the tea, the fermented fireweed tea, because when we do the spinach, it's going to make a big mess. So we'll do that first. So I'm just going to go through, and any leaves that look like they have been munched on by any little bugs, we're going to remove from there. Fortunately, these are actually looking really good. We're going to grab ourselves a mason jar. Okay, so this requires very clean hands, so wash your hands really well, because what we're going to do is actually roll up our fireweed leaves, and we are going to rub them together, excuse me, in our hands like this, so that they form little balls like that. And then we're going to drop them in our jar. So we're going to do that with all of our leaves. It just helps bring out the oils from our leaves. This tea tastes so good. So what we're going to do here, I'm not going to be able to show you the whole process, but I will show you when it's finished in a few days. But we're just going to put these in a jar with an airtight lid for 3 days. Just 3 days, that's all it takes. Nothing else in it, just the fireweed leaves. And then we are going to take them out and dehydrate them, or in my case, freeze dry them. And then in the winter time, when we want to make tea, we just add a few of these little balls into a cup, pour some hot water over it, and it is, I can't really describe the flavor of it. It's a little bit lemony. I think it tastes a little bit like Earl Grey tea actually, which is probably why I love it, because you know I do love my Earl Grey tea. And yeah, it tastes delicious. I love it. It's one of my favorite winter teas actually. That and rose hip tea. We have lots of wild roses around here, and we collect rose hips in the fall. We actually didn't last year, I just realized, but that's another one of my favorites. And then the mix of the two is really nice as well, because the rose hips offer a sweetness to it. So I'm gonna get these all rolled up and put into our jar. Actually, we'll probably be able to fit all of these into one jar. This isn't a huge amount. We're going to just put this back on my counter here, and we're just gonna let it sit, like I said, for 3 days, and then we'll dehydrate it, but I'll show you that once we have that all done. I have our chive flowers here, and they are all rinsed off now. They've been soaking for around 20 minutes. So now I'm going to dump them on here and give them a really good dry before we submerge them in the vinegar. Just gonna give them a dry off, and then get them into a jar, and then they'll sit for, I don't know, as long as they end up sitting on the windowsill. There we go. Now we're gonna top this off with some vinegar. So it's not necessary to stuff your jar this full unless you have this many to do. You could even do this over 2 jars, but I'm just gonna do it over the 1. And then we're just gonna take some white vinegar and then cover up our chive flowers with it. Just pop it over on the windowsill. Now we're gonna tidy up this mess here and get our blender. And all we're gonna do here is add a little bit of water to our blender. I'm going to stuff as much spinach in here as I can and get it all blended up, and then we're going to put it on our trays. So super cool. What the freeze dryer is going to do is remove all the liquid from it. So I'm not worried about adding all this extra water. Just makes it easier to blend. And then once it starts to blend and there's some liquid in there, I'll just keep adding spinach to it until it's full. So there we go. And then we'll just pour it onto our tray here. And then that will go into the freeze dryer. Okay, we ended up getting 4.5 trays from that, so that's great. I'm just gonna give this area a quick tidy, and then we are going to crack into some of the second fermented kombucha. So in my last video, I think, or a couple videos ago, I made kombucha and I shared with you how to start your own kombucha SCOBY from store-bought kombucha. And so I did do a second ferment. I have a raspberry, a blueberry, and a blackberry that we're going to try. And then I also did a second ferment on our water kefir, which is right here. I just used my GT's old GT bottles to do the second ferment. So one thing I will say is we went away for a couple of days while my water kefir was fermenting. And this is what it looks like when it's fermenting. You can see the water kefir grains in the bottom there. And when we got back, it had turned all milky and kind of gross. So I rinsed off the kefir grains and I started another batch, and that's this batch. And it doesn't look like it's carbonating very well, but I did notice with the first batch that there weren't a lot of bubbles coming up from it in the kefir. So I think that the grains needed to be a little bit reactivated. So I'm gonna give this a try, but then I'm going to take this one, which is on hour 48, which is about the amount of time you want to ferment it for. I'm going to do the second ferment on that, excuse me, and see if I can't get a little bit more carbonation, because I do want it carbonated. I'm not a fan of it. I haven't had water kefir before, and I'm not a fan of it plain. It's a little bit too sweet for me. So I'm hoping that a second ferment will work. But I do love second fermented kombucha, so we're gonna give that a try. But first, we're gonna clean up this green explosion in my kitchen. This is some of the greens that I freeze dried last year. So I'll just show you what it looks like once it comes out of the freeze dryer. just a nice powder like that. So I add a scoop about this big to our smoothies. And I did a lot of kale powder last year, so that's why we have so much left. But I'm happy to have that because we're not going to have fresh kale for eating or for adding to smoothies or anything like that for probably another 6 to 8 weeks or so. Okay, let's crack into our kombucha. So what I did here, I should back up a little bit. So once the first batch, which ferments for 7 days, and it looks like this, just like this, and it is just fermented black tea with a little bit of sugar, and that ferments for 7 days. And then I put it into these bottles and then ferment it for a further 3 days. So let's see how our carbonation is on this one. Ooh, look at that. Oh, we're gonna bubble up here, but not over the top. I have been burping this, so I have been opening the lid at least once or twice a day just to keep it so that it doesn't get too crazy and ends up exploding everywhere. There's nothing wrong with having the fruit in it. I just don't like it, so I use a strainer. Look at that carbonation. Ugh, honestly, I love fermenting so much. It's just kind of like magic. Look at all those bubbles. So that one is the blackberry. There's almost no sweetness left now. It's more, I don't know, vinegary, I guess, and that's actually the way that we prefer it. We don't want it to be too sweet. The bacteria actually eats the sugar, so there's not a lot of sugar left in this at all. And people were asking about the alcohol ratio. Apparently, at sort of its highest level, it's 0.5% alcohol. So the amount of alcohol in it is very low as well. And it's really good. One thing I will say, and I've done a little bit of research around this, is because this is quite vinegary or acidic, if you drink too much of it, it can actually affect the enamel on your teeth. But I look at it like if you drink too much of, or you eat too much of pretty much anything, it's not good for you. So just moderation, like with most things. So what I am going to do here is, because the fruit in there will continue to ferment and maybe that would increase the alcohol level, I don't know. So after 3 days, I am going to strain off all of the fruit and then put it back in the bottle again, and then it will go in the fridge for consumption. So I'll do that in a little bit, but now let's give our water kefir a try. Oh, there's a little bit of a fizz there. Smells good. So into this, I added a little bit of pineapple juice and raspberries into this one. And there's a little bit of carbonation there. Not a ton, but a little. I can taste a little fizzle on my tongue. So I do think that with this next batch that I'm going to do, that's this one here, that we will get some more carbonation, but that's pretty good. I don't taste any kind of sour fermented flavor. Honestly, it tastes more like kind of pineapple-y flavored, slightly effervescent water. But it's good. It's good. It's very light. So I am going to do the same thing with that, strain that out. But let's start with straining our kombucha and then getting it back into bottles again. That one had a good, oh no, oh no. Oh man, darn it. That one was the blueberry. So the blueberry I always find is a lot more active than, oh darn. Let's see if I can lid that back up again. Let's pop the lid on that again. I don't want to waste any of it. So I'm gonna leave these on the counter for, I don't know, another few hours at least to kind of get them going again a little bit, because I've obviously lost some of the carbonation moving it back and forth between these jars. And then I will be popping them into the fridge. So we'll set those back there. And we'll clean up our explosion mess. The nice thing is because there's no sugar left in here, very little, this isn't sticky. It's not a sticky mess like if this were to be a pot, for instance. This is definitely my favorite time of year for food preservation because things are just starting to come in from the garden, but it's not overwhelming yet. It will hit that point for sure, but my kitchen is starting to feel like a homestead kitchen again, with ferments on the counter and vegetables that need to be processed, and I absolutely love it. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me today, my friends, and if you have any questions related to what we talked about today, drop those in the comments section below. Either myself or Dan will respond. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone.